Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Witch History and Makeup with me, Brandy. If that sounds awesome to you, definitely stick around. I'll talk about a different witch from history every single week. And I'm telling you, with all these stories, I've been incredibly surprised by a lot of them, and especially this one. I thought the last one had a lot of twists and turns. This one has a lot of twists and turns and a really, really good lesson at the end of it. Now, what I do is I talk about history, like I say. At the same time, I put makeup on. If you want to know what I'm using, you can look in the description below. I'll list everything that I use, including anything that I'm wearing, which today probably not, because I'm not wearing anybody's anything. I feel like doing these are just so much fun for me because I'm learning a lot, and it's really more about women's rights and having the freedom of choice, whether it be in marriage, having a business, having kids, anything that has to do with choice, voting, having land, anything. They wanted to have a choice in the matter. So they came up with their own way. And this story talks about that. So let's go ahead and get this party started. So today our story starts in France. Okay, during the early 1700s. And it's about a woman who really just wanted to, like I say, have the ability to choose, but at the same time, she was very, 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 very religious. Yes. Her name was Marie Catherine. Let's see if I can say this last name right. Cadiere. That's the last time I'm going to say the last name because I don't know. We're going to call her Marie from now on, but that's who we're talking about today is Marie Catherine, okay? And like I say, she was a very, very devout Christian. Her family actually she came from a pretty wealthy family. They owned like an olive oil farm where they grew their own olives and made their own olive oil and sold it and things like that. And so, but unfortunately, her dad died when she was really, really young. Yeah. So it was kind of left to her mom to run everything, including the family business and all that other kind of stuff. Now, Marie had 3 brothers. She did have a sister, but that sister had passed away when she was younger. I think when she was an infant. So she had 3 older brothers. And so one of them eventually one day would have to, when they got old enough, would have to run the farm or the olive tree farm for the family. And, but, her mom, who's named Elizabeth, also instilled in her children faith. She was very, 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 very faith-based, her mom, which is a good thing. It's good to have faith in something. You know what I mean? And so, her brothers ended up becoming like priests and monks and things like that, except for one, because he had to stay and run the business, of course. Wow, that is nuts looking right there. Now, I imagine that her mother probably had a complex when it came to diseases and things like that. So they had their olive oil plant in the town, but they also had a little place out in the country as well. And it had olives and it had its own little olive oil mill as well. But it was kind of like a getaway place for the family. The bustling city life, basically. The family would kind of go out there and they would have the beautiful smells of rosemary and thyme and nature and like all this awesome stuff out there. And so they would spend time out there. But with Marie, her heart loved to be in the city. And you would think I would go on to say because she was very sociable and things like that. It really wasn't that. She really wanted to help do charitable work. And she knew that her options were limited, as it were, because she wanted to do charity work, but she couldn't because she wasn't married. So she would have to either get married or she would become a nun. And they still didn't do it. I don't think nuns back then did charity work, which is kind of unfortunate. I mean, what did they do if they weren't doing charity work? Because I know all the male people back then were in the courts and like all this other shit. You know what I mean? So the city was rotting. They had the bubonic plague going on during this time. By the way, this town lost half of its population in a year to the plague. So they stopped having masses. They stopped having, prayer groups or anything like that because of this plague or whatnot. And so, of course, they escaped to the country because of this plague. But it made Marie sad because she was like, I kind of want to, go and help and see if I can't be of some kind of help. I don't think they realized at the time that it was, I think they kind of knew that it was contagious, but the way she goes about her spirituality later on shows that I don't think she knew that much about sicknesses and illnesses and, shit like that. So for like a whole solid year, 1720 to 1721, there's no masses, there's no nothing. There's no group gatherings because of this plague, right? Well, no masses or anything are held. So, like I say, the family decides they're going to go to their little estate and they're going to go and hang out there. And Marie is not too fond of this idea. She likes the city life. She likes to be able to help and things like this. Now, this lady comes around and she kind of jumpstarts Marie's spirituality, as you may, I guess, if you may. And her name was Anne Madeline. Oh my gosh. We're going to call her Anne Madeline because I cannot pronounce these last names without making myself sound weird. So anyway, this lady was holding group meditations and prayers for the bubonic plague. Now, everybody had been told to stay away from each other. And so this gave Marie's like, oh, this is awesome. Not only do I get to be like with other people, I also get to pray. This is a win-win for me. So this woman, she kind of starts following her. And then, of course, we have a man enters the picture. I mean, every single time. And during this time, the town is in turmoil because, like I say, half the population is dead in their town. They call it the dead town, basically, during this time. I mean, so many people were lost. And so a new figure comes to town. He's a priest. His name is Jean Baptiste. Yes, I know, right? It's for John the Baptist, yeah. I thought that was kind of funny right off the bat, but hey, I'm skipping ahead just a little, so I'm going to slow it down. So this man wanted to bring hope to the town, right? He wanted to bring everybody hope that everything is going to be okay. I am here now. I'm going to get you through this. Now, the one thing that he specialized in was talking to women and conversing with them, and he told them about other saints and things like that, like other women that were saints. And he started like giving them things to do, basically, like community work, stuff they wanted to do, giving them books to read. He had a small group of followers. Most of them were young women. He was in his like mid 40s. And at this time, Marie is like 18. Okay, so she still has that child mentality of, hey, I want to be in a group and I just want to pray and I just want to help people. Okay, and then she ends up meeting Jean. So he was like the local role model to everybody. He put himself off as a really, really awesome dude. They say that he was very charismatic, and believe me, that will come back later. This whole charismatic thing. Very charming. He was the one that led the girl, that led Anne. He led her prayer groups. Okay, so back then, when women prayed, they had to have a successor with them, which was somebody that listened to their confession, basically. So they just completely ignored that part in the Bible where it says to pray by yourself, didn't they? Yeah, they did. And they were making women pray out loud to their successor or whatnot. And so her successor, every time she went and talked to him, was kind of like falling asleep. He didn't really care about anything that she had to say. And then she meets Jean, and all of a sudden, everything that she has to say is gold, you know? And one thing that this Anne chick does, she tries to copy Anne because she wants to get into the good graces of Jean, right? She wants to be close to this man. She wants to learn as much spirituality and do as much good for the population as she can, right? And so once they finally meet, all right, they meet each other. When they actually meet face to face, she said that she heard a voice that said, "Behold the man." And so immediately she had told Jean about this when she met him. She was like, "I just heard this voice. It says, 'Behold the man.' He must be talking about you, you know?" And so after this, she becomes his protege, basically. He starts to mentor her the way he had done Anne and things of that matter. And if you guys haven't figured out by now what this man is doing, he's basically a 1700s Charles Manson. Okay? He's giving all these girls things to read, and he's filling their heads full of a bunch of stuff. And you realize now that he's a very charismatic leader, like I say. He draws a crowd. He's talking to these women. He's listening to these women and their problems. You know, he's giving them a lending ear, which is very comforting to them. It's not something that happens every day. Not in this time. Not during this time that we're talking about now. And so this kind of attention made these girls feel special. So straight up, dude, I just saw it coming. I knew this guy had to have been a cult, especially when he comes in with his name, Jean Baptiste, which is just French for John the Baptist. John the Baptist. Like, come on. I'm sorry, I saw that coming, guys. I saw that one. Sorry. And without a doubt, this guy literally planted himself into her life. I mean, he was helping out her brothers. He was coming to her house. He was lending her books. He was doing all these things to keep a relationship going with Marie, correct? Yes. He offered them basically hopes of heaven and piracy, saying that they had direct access to God because they, not actually through him. Like, I was surprised it wasn't like, you have a direct connection through God through me. He actually kind of meant it as, it's like a personal thing, type deal. Like, to kind of keep it to yourself. Which, I'm not going to lie, I kind of agree. And that's what the Bible says. You're supposed to pray by yourself. And, all that fun stuff. So, that's what they said. And that's what he preached. And she loved it. She was eating it all up. But then all of a sudden now, she started realizing she really, she was already close with Christ and all, but now she's really, really getting into it. It's so, she marries into a relationship with God, basically. In 1929, her relationship with God was intensely personal. So personal. It went beyond prayers. It went beyond just prayers and meditation at this point. She was hurting herself. She had fits of rage, fits of sadness, convulsions. And she was having visions like all the time. Even though she was having fits and convulsions and all this other stuff, this could be a sign of being a witch or being a saint, is what they thought back at the time. Because, like I say, she was having visions and things like that. And people were really taken by these visions. And even the bishop himself was very taken by these visions, which, But then her visions became full of lust. And she said that she had a dream that John the Baptist, like the actual from the Bible, came to her in this dream and showed her a book with her name in it that said Marie Catherine Jean Baptiste, like as if they were married. Okay. Now this set off a huge frenzy in the town. Everybody started freaking out because what's the one thing we heard this whole time? Is books. right? The devil has a book. So people are starting to doubt her. Yeah, they're like, maybe she is a witch. Maybe these visions that she's having aren't visions. Maybe they're like things that the devil is sending her and all this other stuff. And so, of course, rumors start to fly. Now, in her visions, there was something else that she was seeing, and it was the Sacred Heart of Christ. Human heart with a crown and then a cross on top of it. That's what that is. And so she was self mutilating herself by trying to carve that into her chest. Like, I guess where you'd say my heart is, like she was trying to right there. And yeah, that happened. She was mutilating herself to try to get as close to Christ as possible, and I feel like this is under the encouragement of old John over here. He's like, oh, well, if you're a tortured soul, you're a saint. You have to live that tortured life to be, whatever. And then all of a sudden he started reading her physical marks, which, I mean, I just told you guys she was self-harming. So if she had physical marks, she was showing him bloody clothes. And to him, this was stigmata. The signs of Jesus Christ were coming through her, is what he thought. That these are the signs of stigmata. And yeah, sorry to tell you there, bro. But if she was self-harming, that's what you were seeing, she was just, I feel like she was just bringing him bloody clothes just to kind of prove a point. But that's just my opinion. So anyway, but all the other priests and bishops and everybody else thought it was the greatest thing since peanut butter. They were like, oh my God, she's having all these visions and she is seeing all these things. We've got to go and talk to her, see if this is the real deal. And so John would be the one that would examine her wounds. Okay, now we don't know where her wounds were. There was not that much written about this at the time. But he would examine her in her room by herself, her stigmata wounds, and all the priests and everything would come and see. And I mean, that he kind of made a spectacle of her for a while. All she would do would either be like in a catatonic state, or she'd be screaming, or she'd be crying, and she would always reach out for John as like a comfort, like a plushie almost. So remember the vision I told you about John the Baptist showing her a book with her name as married to Jean Baptiste? This was wrong on so many levels because this man was a priest and she was just like a commoner woman, whatnot. This was so bad, so bad. So the church started to question the legitimacy of her visions because to them, other people had, the only book they ever heard of was from the devil. Everybody signs the devil's book, it was in the demonology books and all this other stuff. They sign it in blood and all this. But she's saying that John the Baptist, which is a good guy, came and showed her her name and his name together in the book. Well, the priests and stuff, they didn't like this too much. No, they did not. But it doesn't matter. Her condition just kept getting worse. She was getting sicker and sicker and sicker. Like I say, she was convulsing. She fasted. She wept. She hurt herself. She became catatonic. So catatonic that she couldn't even, they put her in a convent for years. And guess who just stayed there with her and kept visiting her constantly? Jean Baptiste. Yeah. So it's June 1730 when she goes to this convent because she is in a catatonic, not speaking, not doing anything state, right? And so they were going to help her manage her symptoms or whatnot. The nuns there were. Well, like I say, John came and visited her every day, and she stayed there for months. Yeah, she stayed at that place for months. And then her and Jean, because he would have to go off and groom some more members somewhere. Jean would be like, I need you to write me 2 letters a day. And he would express to her in letters how much that he missed her and how everything, like how he kind of, it was kind of not racy, but basically something that priests shouldn't say to like especially a 40-something-year-old priest saying this to an 18-year-old girl who's in a catatonic state because of the things he did to her. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes all the sense in the fucking world to me. No, not really. But anyway, so after a few months, she comes to her senses, I guess you could say. And she's like, I want out of here. So the bishop sends somebody to come and pick her up from the convent. And then she ends up telling her family a whole bunch of things that nobody else knew about. She tells her family that Jean Baptiste had gotten her pregnant and then administered her some kind of medication to make her lose the baby. Those are the accusations that she threw out. And when I say this shook up the town again, I mean, there wasn't that many people left. So this is all the entertainment they had, okay? Oh my gosh, I'm so kidding. But anyway, people were saying that she, first people were against her. They're like, she's a witch. She's a baby iller. She's a, she bewitched the priest. She put a spell on him, a love spell on him, and like all this other stuff. They basically trying to think of any way to give this man a pass. But he does not deserve the pass, okay? He does not deserve the pass at all. So she was saying that he was a rapist and a schmortionist. And this was very, very, that's a very strong accusation to throw at a clergyman, somebody that's a priest, right? So counter accusations come. Yeah. So instead of them being against her, now they were against both of them. Both of them have been, were promiscuous. They were both had wicked knowledge of the female body. Because like I say, he would examine her body all the time for these stigmata wounds. I almost feel like that's an excuse. Because she was self-harming. And so she was bringing him bloody clothes. This is why. Or it could have been for another reason. The bloody clothes could have been because one of those rags ended up looking like the face of Jesus, the bloody rags, and so that's why he thought that the stigmata thing was she was, like Christ reborn. This is what this guy thought, or is what he was making her think anyway. Okay, that's the thing you guys got to remember here. I think he's just making her think all these things, and it's not really happening. And I think that's why she went into a catatonic state, because her brain just couldn't handle it anymore. Yeah, that's what I think. She was assigned a lawyer named Nicholas, and then she told him something else that supposedly is way worse than what she's already said. And it was that Jean had blown into her mouth, almost like that could be taken as a magic spell. Okay. Yeah. Breathed into her mouth. Ever since then, she couldn't pray like she used to be able to. She said that her visions were more passionate, more, I guess, sex-filled or whatnot, So, you really can't control your thoughts. You can to a certain extent, but just because you think of something bad doesn't mean that's a sin. It doesn't mean you have to confess every single thought you have in your head, even though some people do that on the internet, but it's cool, So because of the whole blowing in the mouth thing, Nicholas thinks that she's possessed now at this point because of the convulsions, the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows, her screaming, her crying, all this to them, to her brothers, fits as she needs to be, that she's possessed. This man's possessed her basically by breathing into her mouth. Okay. So now the tide turns in the crowd. The crowd is against the priest now. The crowd is against Jean Baptiste. Yeah. They're like, no. This is not cool. So the two brothers, they start doing stuff to her to kind of demonetize her. To make her not, I mean, she didn't have anything like that in her. She was just dealing with some inner stuff up here because she had been groomed for a long time. You feel me? So there's two sides to this. Now, there's this group called the Jesuits. The Jesuits, they took Jean's side because that's the kind of priest he was a Jesuit priest. The noisy trucks are out in full force today. I so apologize for that. The Jesuits were these people that were kind of, I mean, they were priests, but people regarded them as very suspicious and very like full of themselves. Like they thought basically they thought they owned everything, I mean, right now the church did run France, but it was Catholic. And a lot of these people didn't really like these Jesuits because, like I say, they were, I don't know if I'm even saying that word right. It looks like Cheez-Its to me, like, Cheez-Its, but Cheez-Its. Like, but that, I don't want to say it like that because then I'll just keep laughing from the movie or whatnot. But anyway, sorry, I be playing too much. They were saying that Jean is guilty because they decided that because he was with the Jesuits that he was guilty. Everybody was against this man all of a sudden, against the priest. They were like, oh my gosh, he blew into her mouth. How was that the deal breaker? I'm sorry, but the graping and the essay, that's the deal breaker. Blowing into her mouth, that was the deal breaker? Really? Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and go forward. So anyway, it caused so much chaos in the town that it actually flew past the bishop because the bishop was on the side of Marie, and it goes to the king. Yeah, King Louis XV, as a matter of fact, and he says that it's cause that he refers them to the highest court, which is Parliament. So now we're going to court. Yep, we're going to court in Parliament. It's going to be 25 members of Parliament there. Each person, which is Marie and Jean, will have lawyers. Okay. Now, each person had a lawyer and they were both being accused of witchcraft at this point in the trial. The very beginning of the trial, they're both being accused of witchcraft. All right. Now, they did a pre-trial investigation, of course. And in this pre-trial investigation, Parliament did not really want to question that much when it came to Jean because they didn't want to expose. If he had done something like this, they didn't want that exposed in their church. It makes their church look bad, right? Like I say, her visions and things like that were totally fine until the church was not okay with it. And then that's when all hell breaks loose. So unfortunately, during this time, Marie was imprisoned. Okay. They put her in prison before her trial, and they put her in prison at the convent. Now, the Jesuit people, they started doing some really shady shit, okay? They started going around trying to get false confessions out of people to say that she was doing this and this and this, and she really wasn't doing it. Two devotees were pressured to turn on their friend, claiming that she faked her visions all along, okay? Nuns are asked to sign papers saying so. Like they had to at least sign a paper saying that, yeah, she said that she faked her visions or whatnot. Priests were asked to denounce Marie. And the reason why this priest was totally fine with it was because he had his own. He had caught his own charge by raping a 13-year-old girl. This priest, okay? So they wanted this priest, they were like, okay, if you denounce Marie, we'll make this go away for you. Gross, right? So gross. The bias in this court case is mind-blowing to me. Okay, I will say that. And it shows up at court when everybody has to come, including Marie and the lawyers and Parliament, except for Jean. He doesn't have to come. No, he's good. Well, unfortunately, at this trial, this is where things start to go really, really wrong for Marie, unfortunately. So during her questioning, where Jean is not present, right? And all the people are, all the 25 folks are there, and the lawyers. And they questioned her 3 separate times for 11 hours straight. Yeah. They questioned this woman 3 separate times for 11 hours each. That's 33 hours of somebody questioning you. That's a day and a half. So she ends up confessing, because who the hell wouldn't, after a day and a half of being asked question after question after question? Surely they were all repeated questions over and over and over. We don't know, unfortunately, what the questions were. But we do know that anybody under that much duress is going to confess to pretty much anything. We've seen it happen before. We've seen people confess to shit they haven't done. And so she's just like, oh my God, I just want this to be over. She also said she was forced to drink wine beforehand, you guys. So she said she's very fuzzy-headed at the trial, and she didn't really know what she was saying. All right. So then she's like, you know what? I take it back. That's exactly what she said. She took it back because she was under duress. And when she gave a confession, 33 hours questioning, Lord of mercy on my soul. That's intense. So, even though she confessed on March 6th, March 10th comes around, she's like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not taking the fall for this guy. I'm not going to say that I'm a witch when I'm not. Because remember, she's a very, very holy person. She's very, very Christian. So she's not giving up. She gets new representation. And the new representation is Jean-Baptiste Chardon. Gets rid of Nicholas. Nicholas didn't do much for her. He did get her out of jail at one point, but we're getting there. So this new guy comes in, her lawyer, and says that the new lawyer is charging Jean with spiritual incest, which is raping, raping someone in a confessional relationship. So, these confessors or whatever, successors and stuff, if they do stuff with their person that's against the law, which it should be. He also said that Jean did shishmortions, he was accused of heresy of quietism, which quietism was knowing that you can have bad thoughts and not act on them, basically. That was what their whole basis was, this little group. And I kind of feel that, because like I say, we have bad thoughts, but that doesn't necessarily mean that makes us bad people. Just because maybe somebody cuts us off in traffic and you think, oh my God, that guy's such a, whatever. You're not really meaning that. It's just kind of like an in the moment thing. And so her lawyer also said that Jean has seduced Marie with magic and theology. That sounds so spot on. He reels her in with theology. And then is like, oh yeah, you are just awesome. You're the world. You are amazing in every way. Remember, he's already gotten another person pregnant, and now she's claiming I'm telling you, this man was grooming these girls. He was running a cult. Okay. Now, to her, that attraction to him shouldn't be resisted, is what he said. Even though he's a 40-something-year-old man, and probably about this time she's like 19. Okay. Gross. Now, Jean's lawyer argued that witchcraft was not real. Okay. Basically saying that it's not blasphemy or sacrilege or pretended magic. There's no such thing. It should be he thinks that witchcraft should be in philosophy and not in the courtroom, basically. And he was really, really close to saying that witchcraft didn't exist. And so the king actually says now that witchcraft is not heresy anymore. No, it's not heresy. And so this changes a lot of the public opinion. And it created a delay in her process, because now, remember, the first time she goes to court, it was for witchcraft. Now, the king is saying that witchcraft isn't necessarily heresy. And you'll see where I'm going with this in a minute, because, this king was not really, he wasn't really all that bad. I'm like, oh, wow. He kind of saw what was coming before a lot of people did. So anyway, it delayed, but it helped. Her lawyer ended up getting her out of jail, so she got to go home for a little bit. And by the summer of 1731, like I say, they had made progress in Parliament. Her lawyer had gotten her out of jail. She was allowed to go home. And then they imprisoned Jean. Yeah, for graping her and doing shishmorshins or whatnot. So he was in prison. All right. Now, July 30th, 1731, 2,000 people gathered to yell and to scream obscenities at Jean as he was led to his jail cell. People were pissed. They were very, very upset at this man about what he has done to this woman. I mean, if you imagine all those things she went through, and then she's like in a catatonic state, and she's happy, and she's sad, and she's screaming, and she's crying. Those are the signs of somebody that has so many emotions inside of them that they have no idea what to do with them, because he groomed her so hard. So the mob was on Marie's side. So instead of screaming witch and killing her, and the tables had turned now, and the people were against the church. They were like, okay, this guy's got way too much power over these women. This should not be allowed, So Parliament comes to a decision. Now, this is the first decision they come to. They pick 5 people out of the 25 of Parliament, and they they make the decision on what happens. Okay, 3 blamed Marie as a fake mystic and wanted her to be hanged for abuse of religion. Okay, 2 said that Jean was a sex offender and heretic. But they both said they all 5 said that they should be burned at the stake. And Marie goes to either a convent for 3 years for lying about her visions. This is what the 5 say. None of them say that she was a prophet, and 2 of them believed that she was raped. After this, they put her back in jail, right? Now, riots pop off. And they're not yelling obscenities at her. They are rioting at her jail because they are for her, and they are standing with her. They are rallying up, and they want this woman to be out of court because what they're doing to her is not right. So now the Parliament's under strain. They're like, oh crap, we got to do something. Everybody's going nuts. The people that are left in the town, everybody's going crazy. And so then Marie and Jean were reinterrogated, and then they were pointing the fingers at each other, of course. So it's like at an impasse type deal, right? So now we have to have the 25 Parliament people. They all have to make their own decisions. 25. So they go back through all the evidence. They do all these things. At the very end, Marie's like, look, we're at an impasse here. Let me confront him face to face in the courtroom. Let me ask questions, is what Marie said. And so Parliament's like, okay, we can do that. You can ask him questions. So she asked him, wasn't it true that you seduced me? Wasn't it true that you called me your idol? Yeah, he thought that she was her, that she was his idol or whatnot because she was such a saint, according to him. She was just telling her that to make her feel special. You feel me? Saying that he impregnated her, gave her shishmortion drugs. And why wasn't all 80 of the letters that he wrote to her provided to the court? I imagine he probably gave like 1 or 2 of the ones that weren't so racy. But she says there were 80. That's a lot of letters between 2 people. 80 letters? I didn't even write that many when my husband was in boot camp, for real. And then she's like, hey, isn't another one of your followers pregnant with your kid right now, bro? Like, what's up with that shit, you know? And so, of course, the only thing he could do was interrupt her, accuse her of being a hussy, and just denied all the claims. You know what I mean? Neither of them accused each other of witchcraft, though, because now that was out of the picture. This was about her faking visions and him raping her. Okay, God, I gotta stop saying that word because I know I'm not allowed to say that word. So first, on October 10th, 1731, they come to their final decision. Parliament does. We got all 25 of them have looked at all the evidence. They talked to over 120 people about this court. I mean, they did their due diligence. I will say that. So of 25, John Baptiste was judged first. Of 25 judges, 13 acquitted him of doing anything wrong, with one saying he didn't do anything wrong, but he sure as hell acted like a dodo. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. So there's your 13. His sentence was he was suspended from the priesthood. 12 judges, the minority, the other half, ruled that he should be burned as a witch, a rapist, a shishmortionist, and a heretic. I'm kind of with the other 12. How about you guys? I'm just curious. You know what I mean? Marie Catherine is judged as well. 13 of 25 acquitted her. Yep. She got to go home. The only thing that 12 voted imprisonment in a convent or jail for 2 to 10 years as a liar and a fake mystic. But because it was 12, not 13, she got off. I mean, 13 and 12, dude, that is close. So both were released and free to go home, and the cases were dismissed, and that was the very last witch trial that was held in France. It brings a new idea of witchcraft to the table and why these two went to court the way they did. Because if he did give her medicine that made her have shishmortion, then that is a type of witchcraft for back then. That was the passion that they had in their letters and the witnesses saying that they had seen, one of the nuns had said they had seen them holding hands and kissing. And so I think he knew that he was kind of done for at this point. But it just goes to show you that they didn't look at these things that used to be looked at as witchcraft. They didn't look at it in this way this time because these two people were so religious in their community. They were so hardcore religious. And, by now people were pulling away from the superstition of witchcraft. It was like if you were a Christian, if you were a true Christian, you don't believe in witchcraft. That's basically what the thing meant. So that was the very last witch trial of France, and that is our person for today. And I didn't, I really didn't see the cult thing coming. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really see that coming, but I did when I was reading it because I was like, why is he so interested in female issues and problems? This makes some sense to me. There's got to be something going on there, and there was. He was grooming these girls and making them think they were as awesome as these female saints, teaching them, giving them books. We don't know what kind of books. They could have been racy kind of books for all we know for back then. You know what I mean? We don't know. But it did change the way that witchcraft was looked at. That not every shishmortion was witchcraft. That not every time somebody, fell in love, they were bewitched. Nobody was poisoned. None of that happened. The only real thing that she said that had anything to do with being a witch was that book. But she said that John the Baptist showed it to her, not the devil. She didn't have to sign it in blood. Her name was already there. So, I'm just saying. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this really long video today. I know it was a long one, but it was a really, really good one. I really like Marie, and I hate the fact that she got caught up in this Charles Manson-esque just without the acid. You know what I mean? It just really got into their heads. So, anyways, if you guys like this video and you would like to subscribe, go ahead and hit that little button that's like right there. And just to let you know, if nobody's told you today, I love you. Okay. See y'all have a great week.